how random do you feel life is based on that story? Do you actually feel that if it wasn't for that input, you would maybe work in the public sector, or do you think like eventually you would figure it out? Or do you think life is a bit random and it's about taking the signals you get in and using them?
I think how random life is depends on who you are, because some people make a very fixed career plan and stick to it their whole life. My life on a sort of tactical operational plan has been entirely random. Nothing has been planned. I have stumbled backwards into everything. I just come across things. I just randomly meet people. I just see things, and then certainly it takes a turn. So I'm giving you a long answer, but so I'm only in the beginning of this answer now. But I'll give you an example. So at the beginning of this year, 2020, of course, I had no idea that there would be COVID. I had no idea that I would publish a new book, write a new book. I had no idea about that. And I had no idea that I would found a hedge fund. So this all happened because when the COVID, the COVID started in China, there was something that most people probably read about, that there was this new flu thing in China. Nobody took any notice. Stock markets kept going up. Governments did pretty much nothing. And then I think it was on the 24th of February, I wake up in the morning and I take my phone as I normally do. I like to work with my phone in bed because my brain wakes up much faster than my body. So then I don't need to move my body, but I can still work with my brain. Anyway, so I open it up and there's an email from Goldman Sachs and another one from an institute called Bank Credit Institute. Both of them have a big study about COVID. And I start reading them, and both of them paint a very serious picture of something that people are not taking serious. And at the end of it, I'm totally sure that we'll go into a massive recession, that stock markets will crash, etc., etc. So I called my banks and asked them to sell absolutely everything, all equities I've had since 2009, which has been a great run. It's up 400%, so the markets in that period. So just to sell everything, and this kind of conversation where they repeat everything? Yes, everything. And then I sat down and I wrote on Facebook that I thought this was going to be very serious, and I had just sold all my equities, and I explained why this was so serious. And then I think this was on a Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, nothing really happened. We were 0.5% from the absolute top of the stock market when I sold. But then on the next morning, the markets collapsed, and then they did the fastest collapse since World War II. And then in the middle of that, actually about 5 trading days after I'd sold my equities, I went short. So I sold futures to earn money on some of the downturn. And I wrote that immediately on Facebook. And then as the markets came down, I advised everybody repeatedly to now buy. This is an excellent opportunity to get in and establish long-term positions. Then I'm still explaining the randomness of life. So of course, so COVID was unexpected. Then I get a call from a publisher who said, I've been following all your trading recommendations and you got it right. Like every turn, everything you got right. And you've written some quite long, complex books about investing. Don't you want to write a book which is really easy to understand for normal people about how people like you work? And then I dictated that book in 12 days. And then a friend of mine said, Lars, you should start a hedge fund. You are really good at trading, and you've clearly been very good at it for 30 years. So why don't you start a hedge fund? And I said, well, this is a big project. But then he said, we'll set up everything for you. You don't have to do anything until the fund is actually established in Luxembourg with banking partners and so on. We'll set it up, and then you just start trading. So I said, okay. And then the book came out, and then the book became the #1 bestseller in Denmark. It's been, is still today, and it's been almost every day for the last 2 months has been the #1 sold book in Denmark. So now I got 724 people who wrote to me if they could invest in my hedge fund. So going back to your question, here I have with this book and with this fund, and I had no plan. It was not planned. It was not a part of my plan at all for what I should do this year. I had some other plans. And by the way, in the summer, I was sitting, so I spent, because of COVID, I spent 4 months on a boat that I have in the Mediterranean and didn't leave it for 4 months because it's so complicated with traveling. And I had guests coming on board, off board, and then I had 5 days where I was alone only with the crew. And then I sit with the captain, we have a glass of wine, and we look just for fun at yachts for sale. And then suddenly there comes up a fantastic yacht. And I said, his name is Alfonso. I said, Alfonso, this is the kind of boat I like. And then we looked, specification. It was incredibly fuel efficient. It was a 40-meter boat. Normally they eat fuel like crazy. So how can it be so efficient? And then he said, oh, this is electric pods. It's a fantastic system and the best you can have and so on. Then we went further down, and then at the end it said bank owned. Bank owned. That means that somebody went bankrupt. And the bank now sits with a wonderful boat, and you can really sometimes negotiate incredible prices with bank-owned boats. So instead of going back to Switzerland, we sailed to France where the boat was, got a berth right next to it, and then for 2 weeks I had people crawling all over it, including myself, inside the hull and so on, investigating this boat. It was an excellent built boat. And then I gave a bid, and the bid was low, but I got it. So that was another big project, and I spent something like 2 man-months on it, and that was not a part of the plan. So back to your question. I'm sorry, this is probably one of the longest answers you ever had to a question. Stop laughing. But I think for many people, the tactical things are completely random, but the overall direction is not, because you will have so many things that happen in your life, and you're attracted to some and you're not attracted to others. And so what you're attracted to depends on your value system, your moral instincts, your personality. So you will always go in that direction. I'm very focused on the difference between being laser focused and having a radar. So people who make a very detailed plan for the career, they work with a laser focus, and people who are more entrepreneurs, they're more like a radar. So they scan everything around them, and then they just grab things they like, and they move away from stuff they don't like. And the interesting thing is that you probably know there's been a lot of research into happiness. There's even an international happiness database compiling all this research. But I found out there's also been research into luck. There's especially a scientist called Weissman. He has studied why some people seem to be lucky and some people seem to be particularly unlucky. So he put adverts in media asking people to contact him if they felt that they throughout life had been particularly lucky or particularly unlucky. And then he made a lot of experiments with them. And for instance, one experiment, people have to read a newspaper, and he says, you have to read this, you have to flip through this newspaper and tell me how many photos there are in it. So they go, and at the end somebody says there's 21 photos. But some of them stop much earlier, and that's because on page 1, it says you can stop right here, there are 21 photos, it says in the headline. And another one says, if you stop here, you will get $1,000 or whatever. So the lucky people were the ones who noticed these things. The unlucky people were only looking for the pictures. So they had laser focus on the pictures, but were not noticing anything else. He also did a study where people had to go into a bar, and then he put candid camera, hidden cameras, and then deliberately he would come 20 minutes late for an interview. And then he just noticed what they did in those 20 minutes. So the lucky people, they would start talking with other people around them. The unlucky people would just, sit with their phone or stare at a newspaper or something like that. So it's partly built into your personality, but it's also a choice whether you want to work more with a laser or more with a radar. And it can very well be that people who are more radar people, they need to work with laser people to get stuff done. Because if you're entirely a radar person, then maybe you don't focus enough. So you need to work with somebody who are capable and desire to focus much more.